Hey everybody, welcome to Bible class today. Now again, I hope that you enjoyed hearing from Jacob on Sunday. I was able to get him to come back and talk to us one more time. So he is here and he is going to tell you kind of the second half of his life. I hope that you will enjoy listening to him. So here is Jacob.
Boom, ba-boom, 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 boom, ba-boom, boom, ba-boom, 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 boom, ba-boom, boom, ba-boom, ba-boom.
If you remember last time, I was telling you that my brother Esau was so very angry with me. He wanted to kill me. So my mother spoke to my father and they sent me away. They said that I needed to go to the house of Laban, my mother's kinspeople, to find a wife there. And so I went, and as I was on my way from Beersheba to Haran, I went to sleep, and I had a dream. It was an interesting dream, one that I have a hard time explaining, but the best way I can say it to you, there was a ladder, a big ladder that went from earth all the way up to heaven. And there were angels climbing up and down that ladder. God made me a promise at the same time. He said this to me. I want to read it to you.
I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and to your offspring. Your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west, and to the east, and to the north, and to the south. And in you and your offspring shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Behold, I am with you, and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you.
I didn't realize it whenever I went to sleep, but it was the house of God that I was at. And so I named the place Bethel, which means the house of God. And I said that if these things will happen, then the Lord will be my God. So I kept traveling. Whenever I came to Haran, at first I was just in the region, and I was out in the fields, and I came to a well, and there were some shepherds there that were there gathered with all of their sheep. In that well, it was covered with a very large stone, and the shepherds were all gathered around, and it was in the middle of the day, and I said, well, why are you here? This isn't the time that people usually water their sheep. And I could see in the distance there was another flock of sheep coming. And they said, well, we don't usually water our sheep until all of us are gathered here, and then we move the stone and water the sheep. And so as we were talking, the other shepherd came, and it was actually a shepherdess. I have to say, it was one of the most beautiful women that I had ever seen. And whenever she arrived, I found out her name was Rachel. I moved the stone, and she watered her sheep, and so did the other shepherds. And I told her who I was, and I found out who she was. I had been asking the other shepherds if they knew Laban, which is one of my relatives. And they said, yes. Is it well with him? They said, yes. In fact, here's his daughter, Rachel. So I told Rachel who I was, that I was the son of her father's sister, Rebekah. So she went home and told Laban, and Laban came out and he greeted me, and I stayed with him. And so I stayed with him for quite a while, and I began to work with him. And he said, you shouldn't work for free. What shall your wages be? I thought for a moment. 7 years I will work for you, for your daughter Rachel. Again, one of the most beautiful women I had seen. He agreed. He says, why would I give her to somebody else? I would rather give her to a kinsman, somebody within our clan. Those 7 years, seemed but just a few days because of my love for Rachel. At the end of those 7 years, our wedding came, and I remember, this may sound bad, but I remember being disappointed. The next day, I realized he had given me Leah, Rachel's sister, not the one I worked for 7 years. I was confused. Why have you done this? And he said, it's not our custom that we give the younger before the older. See, Leah was older. But I wanted Rachel. And he said, okay, wait a week and then you can marry Rachel. And so I did. And I worked another 7 years. But I was happy. I loved Rachel. And at about that time, we started having children. But Leah, she had an attendant, a maid servant, you might say, called Zilpah. And Rachel also had one called Bilhah. So I married 2 women, and I had 2 maidservants with them. So Leah started to have children. She had Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. Then I think Rachel got a little jealous, and she was unable to have children. So she gave Bilhah as a wife, and Bilhah had Dan and Naphtali. After that, Leah got jealous again and then gave me Zilpah as a wife. Zilpah had Gad and Asher. And then Leah had a couple of more sons, Issachar and Zebulun, and then a daughter, Dinah. And finally, my favorite wife, Rachel, she had Joseph and she had Benjamin. We'll talk a little bit more about Benjamin later. But when Joseph was born, I asked Laban if he would give me my wages and let me go. And so he said, okay, let's do that. What shall your wages be? And I said, okay, let me have from the flock that I've been taking care of, because I became a shepherd myself. And I was really, I have to say, pretty good at it. Let me have the spotted, speckled, and black sheep and goats. And he agreed. He said, okay. But Laban, he was a tricky fella. He took all of the black, spotted, and speckled sheep and goats, and he took them 3 days' journey away, and he didn't leave them with me at all. So I had kind of a dilemma. My wages basically had all just been taken from me. What was I going to do? So I got sticks from poplar, almond, and plane trees, and I peeled the bark back so you could see the white wood underneath. And I laid it in the water troughs, and then my flock started having spotted, speckled, and black sheep and lambs. And it worked out. God provided for me. He took care of me. And then this went on for really quite some time, kind of switching back and forth. And after, I think, about 6 years, I decided it was time to leave. And I didn't think he would let me leave. And I was kind of worried that he would try to take my wives and children from me. You might say we snuck away. We left fairly suddenly. It took 3 days for him to find out, and he pursued us. And I think it took him a week to catch up to us. And when he did, he was not happy. He was very angry, and he was accusing me of all kinds of things and stealing things from him, which of course I hadn't done. And I told him, all this time that I've been working for you, your sheep and your goats, your flocks prospered. They were well. Everything went well. They didn't get taken by the beasts. I took care of them. Which reminds me, I had my shepherd's crook. And this is a very important tool, because you can use the shepherd's crook. If a sheep gets stuck somewhere and I can't reach it, I can reach out with my hook. I can grab them and bring them back. It also is a good stick. If wolves or lions or bears come, I can hit them. I can protect. It's a very important tool. That's why I have this. Many people don't realize what all it does for you, but it's a very important tool as a shepherd. It allows me to take care of the sheep. And that's what I did. I told Laban, I said, I've been taking good care of the animals this whole time. How dare you accuse me of stealing from you? So I pointed out also that in those 6 years, he changed my wages 10 times. They were back and forth, like I told you. And then I told him, I said, I worked 7 years for Rachel and 7 years for Leah, and then 6 years for the flocks. What do you want me to, 20 years I'd worked for this guy, and now he's angry, saying I'm stealing from him. So we made a covenant between each other that we set up this pile of rocks, and we called it the watch post, which in Hebrew, Galid. And it's just a witness between he and I that would be sort of the reminder of our covenant, that God was witness between us. When we had made our covenant, me and my people, we left. And now we had to travel through Edom, which is the country where Esau, the region of land where he had moved and was living. It had been 20 years since I had seen Esau, but do you remember what he said? He said, basically, I'm going to kill Jacob. Let me just say, to put it gently, I was nervous about meeting my brother once again. He wasn't happy with me the last time I saw him, and he wanted me dead. So I sort of set some things up, and I put groups of people together with my herds and flocks, and I prepared a gift, and I sent them all in front of me. And lastly, I sent my wives and my favorite sons over right in front of me. And I think at that time, Rachel was pregnant with Benjamin. So I sent them on ahead of me. And once again, I didn't have a dream this time, but I had an encounter with God. There was a man that appeared, and we wrestled with one another. It was physical. I remember being so exhausted and tired, and I was asking, "What is your name?" He wouldn't tell me. I asked that he would bless me, and he did, but he changed my name. He didn't tell me his name, but he changed my name from Jacob to Israel. Israel, it means one who wrestles with God. That night I had wrestled with God, and I'd gotten through. But last thing that happened, he touched my hip socket, he put my hip out of joint, and I remember limping for the next several days because of what he did to my hip. And so the next day, crossed the river behind all of my family, and I met Esau. Like I said, I was nervous, but he was happy to see me, almost like he had almost forgotten everything that had happened. He had been blessed by God. He had all kinds of people and land and herds, and he had everything that he needed. And he said, "What is the meaning of all these things?" And I told him it was a gesture of kindness from me to him. And we spent some time together. It was good. After that, we parted ways. As we traveled from parting our ways, I once again heard from God, and he blessed me one more time. This I want to read to you also.
Your name is Jacob. No longer shall your name be called Jacob, but Israel shall be your name. I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation and a company of nations shall come from you, and kings shall come from your own body. The land that I gave to Abraham and Isaac I will give to you, and I will give the land to your offspring after you.
Once again, I was blessed by God, and he changed my name from Jacob to Israel, and he told me this nation would come after me. Not long after that was probably one of the saddest days of life that I remember. My wife Rachel, I told you we were traveling. She was pregnant with Benjamin. And as we traveled, she went into labor. She began to give birth, and it was a hard labor. And she gave birth to Benjamin, and she died. So you might say that Rachel, I loved Rachel, and I'll be honest, I loved Rachel more than I loved Leah. She was my favorite wife, and so her sons, Joseph and Benjamin, were very special to me. Joseph was my favorite, honestly, and Benjamin was very special to me as well. Well, of course, there's more that happened in my life. I'm sure you'll learn more about that later, but that's what I have to tell you. So I appreciate you coming and listening to what I have to say in the story of my life. All right, so that is the life of Jacob. It's pretty interesting. There's a lot of things that happened. He had 12 sons. Those sons would become the 12 tribes of Israel. Israel, of course, being his name. Anyway, thank you for joining me. Now, for those of you that are signed up for winter camp, I'll see you on Friday. If you want to join us in that anyway, you're welcome to. Friday, the videos will be posting. And then, of course, Sunday morning we'll be closing out, and you'll see one more of those videos anyway. So looking forward to that. I will see you then. Hope you have a good week.